Huh. Terminator 3 The Redemption. Let's see what this is. Oh! Oh dear lord. Yeah, that's not happening. On top of Terminator Rise of the Machines releasing in tandem with the movie, a second Terminator game, Terminator 3 The Redemption, was released the following year. Unlike Rise of the Machines, it's actually pretty good. Well, until the first cutscene ends and you have to play it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's rewind a bit. What exactly happened last time? So, Terminator Rise of the Machines comes with a demo of the Redemption's first level. Now, I didn't think that'd emulate well, and I was right. Yeah, not a fun time. Makes sense though, it is trying to boot up another game inside of a game, so it's an extra layer of confusion for the emulator. I can accept having issues there, and it doesn't matter since I was going to play the full release as well. Only problem is, the full release plays like ass too. Sometimes these emulators trick you. With all the pre-rendered stuff running fine and the menus seeming good, you might think everything's going to be okay, but then this happens. Slowdown worse than I've ever seen. I tried rebooting the game, messing around with settings, but only two things impacted it. One was when Terminator Vision was active in game, the other was switching around what renderer I was using in PCSX2's settings. Before I found out about the renderer, I sat through that whole opening cutscene thinking maybe the rest of the game wasn't affected. Spoiler, it was. The cutscene took so long, probably like quintuple the amount of time it should have. So, I don't know, I was sitting maybe 30 minutes, losing my mind, losing hope until, aha, boom, I swapped the settings and oh for fuck. Still the game refused to run correctly, but now running sort of too quickly sometimes. But also still suffering slowdown. I googled and googled, but I never did find a fix, so I persevered through the terrible frame rate, and that's what you'll be seeing footage of on screen, as well as whatever footage I've had to steal because I probably forgot to record something. With that unnecessary ramble out of the way, let's take a gander at the game, shall we? What sets Redemption apart from Rise of the Machines? Well, as any viewers with eyes will immediately know, T3 The Redemption uses a third-person perspective rather than first like the previous game, allowing us to see not Arnold in all his glory.
Internal transponder was activated.
And glory he has as he tears through Terminators. This is what I wanted out of a Terminator game with a Terminator protagonist. Just pure badass insanity. Dual wielding, hijacking tanks, flying airships. This game is nuts. And in a good way. The animations look brilliant on the attacks. Arnold is just brutal to these things, smacking them with signposts, stripping their heads off, stomping, headbutting. At first glance, the combat really does appear quite good. One teensy problem, it's limited, awkward, and as cool as it looks, pretty repetitive. The combo screen feels pretty misleading, because even though it looks quite long, you'll only ever see the same 3 animations. That's only the melee combat though. Gunplay makes up the bulk of encounters, and it's one of the strangest, hardest to control aiming systems I've ever encountered. But it's for a bizarre reason. I mean, if you'd never played a game before, I think it might actually be intuitive, but if you have any experience controlling a third-person shooter, your brain will be fried in about 30 seconds of touching the remote. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, essentially, the right stick controls the camera, but not technically where you aim. Instead, where you aim is controlled by where the camera is positioned. So rather than aiming directly at enemies, you have to move the camera and the game automatically locks onto the enemies for you. What gameplay then boils down to is you awkwardly trying to aim, meanwhile the game cycles through the lock-ons, through every single target, and you hit nothing. After an hour or so, you sort of adjust, but the urge to try and move the camera never goes away, so even later on you'll end up with situations like this. Movement is fine, Arnold runs fast enough, but just like CQC taking a backseat in combat, so too does running in terms of movement. Yeah, so most of the time you spend your time not only wrestling with the awful lock-on, but wrestling with the awful lock-on while driving at high speeds and chasing things, while also avoiding obstacles, switching vehicles, and taking necessary shortcuts. We'll come back to it. So depending on where you're driving, you have different weapons, and the controls are a different variant of ass. None of them have decent enough turning circles, and the handbrake takes you down to a crawl way too quickly. Oh, and sometimes the problem you'll have to deal with is this. We'll also get back to that. The vehicle segments wake up way too much of the game. It baffles me on a primal level why you'd make so much of a Terminator game with vehicles. I guess there's another form of easy padding, since there isn't a huge amount of different battles in the movie, but I don't know. Do what Rise of the Machines did and add a bit where you fight humans before Arnold gets reprogrammed. Instead they had all this weird shit that I'm 99% sure isn't in the film. Not 100 because I still haven't watched it. And most of this stuff I'm not even sure fits in with the game's plot, which I guess I kinda have to speak about. So being truthful, I didn't pay attention to the cutscenes here. Now, does that mean I have no right to criticise it? Yes. Will I criticise it anyway? I don't know, maybe? Is there even anything to criticise? So presuming you've seen the first video, you know my thoughts on the plot of Terminator 3. In short, I think it sucks. So for another game based on it, well yeah, I think it still sucks. But in a unique way now, because we have all these strange expansions. The airship scene, for example. When does this take place? Because I swear it happens right at the end of the game, but it has to be a flashback since he's fighting Terminators. But then again, we saw his whole run from reprogramming to his trip to the past earlier. So when is this? Is it a different Terminator? Is it just filler? Did the TX bring a whole fleet with her? Who knows? I don't know. It just seems disjointed, more than the film or even the previous game. And just like it, this game uses a bizarre combo of film clips, in-engine, and pre-rendered cutscenes. It feels like a roulette wheel got spun to decide some of them, because it just abruptly switches mid-cutscene. It's jarring, especially when Arnold goes from this to this. I'll praise the game though, the pre-rendered cutscenes do often look quite good, especially for a, I presume, quite low budget game. And that expands the gameplay as well. It has some really impressive graphics, and I remember this being one of the coolest things to me when I was younger. When Arnold takes damage, the game represents it visually through his clothes and skin being blown off. The rest of the game follows suit. The effects are good, enemies are all on model, some of the areas are genuinely stunning for PS2. They almost look PS3 at points. The only strange graphical choice I can think of is this part where all the Terminators appear to shrink down to be about 8 inches tall. The music and sound aren't much, for the most part they're pretty generic but inoffensive. Although I can't really remember hearing the Terminator theme. Maybe it's on the title screen? Perhaps the credits? I mean, I can check right now. Huh. That's weird. Guess not. Now it's time for me to get back to gameplay. I've spoken about the basic formula, but not about the level designs and the individual moments of straight garbage. So firstly, you're far too weak. Not in terms of damage output, but in terms of how much you can take. Arnold is pathetic. Wait more than a couple of seconds to attack an enemy and you're toast. Not to mention, no checkpoints. Why the hell not? It's 2004. Checkpoints are standard. I get that the levels aren't long, but the gameplay gets so repetitive that it just siphons your energy after a few deaths. The game also has an XP system with upgrades you can buy for Arnold. But your purchases only save after you beat a level, so if you die, when you restart the mission you have to repurchase all the upgrades you just got. You can at least regain some health by stomping on Terminators and by occasional environmental triggers like this telephone pole, but it isn't near plentiful enough to keep up with the damage you receive. I also never understood exactly how to end up with an enemy on the ground for you to stomp on them. It might be random, you might have to damage them in a certain way to take out their legs, I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be the only part of the gameplay loop that feels entirely random. For example, there are moments where Terminators just blow up, boom, completely out of nowhere. Well, how about picking up a secondary gun? It just happens sometimes when you kill an enemy, no rhyme or reason to it. I played the first level a good few times and several of the times I was at a distinct disadvantage because I was lacking half of my possible firepower. The vehicle missions also suffered greatly. There's some moments that we'll get to, but also on rail segments, often you find yourself just in these moments where you're flying after one of the Terminator pod things or shooting down anti-air guns, and it's just far too hard. You have constant projectiles firing at you, while you also have to be destroying targets. But, and once more this feels fucking random, the targets appear to have weak points, so you try and aim specifically at them, but unfortunately your reticle's going ape shit because of the terrible camera. On top of that, you have projectiles firing towards you that you need to be shooting down, so you have to balance aiming at them too. Also, perhaps it's a me thing, but I'm pretty sure the sensitivity slows down significantly in these parts too, just to mess with you. There are also turret and other vehicle segments again that just throw way too many enemies and projectiles at you at once. Sometimes it's not even hard, it's just irritating to get a hit in. Like this part with all the hunter killers, or this endless helicopter fight. I mean, gaze upon its glory. You get all 2 seconds to try and force the game to lock on before you need to clear another 3 screenfuls of missiles. And I can't forget the aforementioned tiny Terminator bit, where you get this gigantic tank that somehow basically gets 2 hit by every other tank. It's just chef's kiss. Is that all my bitching? Never. There are a couple of levels in particular that I'd like to talk about. Firstly, Necessary Shortcut Hell. Now this, I believe, is the first mission set in the past, so it deals with Arnold chasing down the TX and making sure it doesn't kill John and Kate. But the TX is way too fast for starters. There are random police that exist solely to slow you down right at the beginning. You have to take every shortcut, some of which are not obvious, and are also really difficult to take because the controls are terrible. Not only that, but there are also just sort of random quick time event bits. Plus, just watch the turns you have to make in the scrapyard. It's so awkward. Then there are more terrible pathways later on, and 1 or 2 moments where I swear the game just tricks you. The game is nothing more than a continuous trial and error, as you try over and over to improve your time, only to get caught up in the terrible geometry of the level. Add in the fact there's no checkpoints, and every time you fail you have to go through the game over screen, a loading screen, skip the cutscene, and the upgrade shop. It leaves you looking like prime AVGN by the end, and by God, I thought the end was never coming. I had 11 attempts, at least. That's just the ones that I'd recorded. I probably took at least double that. The next level also happens to be terrible. Involves chasing the TX in a vehicle again, although this time you actually get to shoot it. But it's actually impossible to lock on most of the time. Then there's an awful one where you have to bash a police van, and finally the worst one, the one that made me quit. This, oh ho ho. So you're driving the crew and the TX keeps hopping on top of your car. You need to roll it off and bash into objects. But you have to do this by drifting, which, as established earlier, slows you down immediately. Thus, you end up at a total crawl and can't make it to the obstacles to bash the TX off. I tried several times to beat this level, but it's just complete wank. I gave up. I searched the cheat codes online, and after a bit of a struggle putting them in, since some of them didn't seem to be working, soon I was... So I sped through some more levels, and then I had to go to bed. It was getting late. I tried to beat the last level the next morning, but I forgot to put the cheat codes on, so I died. The end. This game was so disappointing to me. My younger self had been so hyped up by it that I kept waiting for it to get good, but it never did. There are certainly good aspects and cool moments, but the core experience of the gameplay is totally worthless. This isn't a good game. It's not even an interesting game, and it certainly isn't one that you should play. I'd recommend staying away from it. If you're looking for a good Terminator game, maybe try the DOS ones or Resistance. I thought it was okay, although I never did beat it. Well, thank you if you made it this far. I know my schedule's been all over the place, but it should be pretty regular for the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Hit the buttons below. Goodbye.